Okay, so now external rotation. If you have someone who's a thrower, golfers big too, they definitely need this. Everybody needs this. We all need rotation. Remember our capsule cars, right? We have that stake going through the elbow into the shoulder. So what I want to do is I want to slightly elevate him. Does it mean that I couldn't keep his elbow on the ground? No, but I do want to slightly elevate him, especially for your first 10 times doing this with someone. The goal is to keep this distance the same. So I want him to try to see if he can keep that there. So now you see, if you were going to look to the side, it might not be perfect because this yoga block's at kind of a different height than I'm used to, but it's going to be relatively straight line into his shoulder. Does everybody see that? Okay. So now I'm always going to go ahead, especially since it's so easy, to test his active range of motion for external rotation. I'm going to say you have an X on your bicep. I want you to go ahead and make sure that this stays back here. So I don't want this to necessarily move. So he's going to use his shoulder blade a little bit to pull down. Some people, when they do that, are going to actually bend their spine. So sometimes when you tell someone to pull their shoulder blade down, they're going to actually do this, and they're going to side bend. So sometimes I'll even take a second to look over them bird's eye view and make sure that they didn't do that. And that's just like what he asked before. If you have them do a couple of scap cars before this, that's why I always do cars in the beginning of a session anyway, so it's taken care of, but having them do that might be a good idea here too. Fingers are not the shoulder, so I want them to stay straight. Don't flick your wrist, because your wrist is not your shoulder either. Elbow is going to stay here. There's an X on your bicep. I want you to lift your hand as high as you can and turn the X to the back of the room. Perfect, good, dude. This is perfect for you, huh? Your boy really knew it. You guys are really hanging out, huh? That's awesome. Okay, so you can see that this would be the perfect thing. This is exactly where I would start him. Might even start him on the ground for the first round. But you saw how when he tried to lift up and access this stuff, he actually just turned his wrist and used his elbow. So his elbow rotators are basically like, yo, I'm your shoulder. It's cool. Obviously not cool when we're doing other things, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and say he got all the way up to here, then I would take 3 yoga blocks, stack them up. I might even take a kettlebell, which you guys will see on Instagram, on the website, everything, and I'll have him grab the kettlebell so that here's the ground, the kettlebell's on the ground, and he's here pushing down, lifting up. Because he's where he is, this is probably going to be perfect for him. Now, if he does flick his wrist, so lift your wrist up like this, do you feel how you lost tension in the shoulder? It's like immediate. When you're grabbing the kettlebell, if you do that one, make sure you don't do this. Make sure you're actually over it like this, and immediately your client will be like, holy shit, and the shoulder will light up, it'll get uncomfortable. Now, the closing angle on this is the back side of the shoulder, but it's a little bit tricky because if you ask them and say, where do you feel this? They'll say, I feel really uncomfortable in the back side of my shoulder, maybe a bicep stretch. Some people are gonna feel a chest stretch here, but make sure that you ask them, is it a pinching or burning or anything feeling back here? I have yet to have someone have that, but they are going to feel really uncomfortable back here just because it's a shortened tissue and it just feels uncomfortable. Now, my pails, if I'm trying to increase external rotation, is going to be, you're not allowed to answer. Good job. Nice, Damien. Okay, so internal rotation from here looks like this. He's going to try to push his hand through the ground. Do I want him to push his elbow down? Yes, but I want him to emphasize pushing this down. So big deep breath in. Pull your belly button away from the ground. Get this nice and tight. Good. Abs are tight. Shoulder blades in a good spot. Start fucking crushing this block every single second. A little bit stronger. I want to try to keep his head down. And I want to make sure that he's not looking to the right so he doesn't close down his neck on that side. I used to have people be able to look to the left, but I just like to have him face down now. It just makes it simple. Keep pushing every single second a little bit stronger. When he's doing this, he is pushing his hand down, he is pushing his elbow down. But what he's really doing is keeping this the same and thinking about doing this. So he's really trying to rotate to the ground without his scap coming along. Feedback. I'm here, scap's not allowed to go. You're here, rotate that motherfucker to the ground. Keep trying, everything you got. 5, 4, 3, 2, relax that. Opposite, do your lift off again. Try to lift this up, good. Don't flick that wrist, don't flick that wrist. Even if you don't get as high, keep going, good. Don't flick the wrist, don't flick the wrist. Good, good, good. 5, 4, 3, feel this work, 3, 2, 1. I can make that higher, right? You guys see that? If I had another yoga block or a kettlebell, he was able to lift. I know I got it. So I would just add a little bit of height and have him work from there. Take a couple of breaths in between, let the shoulder calm down, then go into your next round if you can. As I've said over and over again, ease them into it if you need to. Does that make sense? Okay. So I don't remember the last time I did the Americana is what this is called, and I don't remember the last time I did this without doing these after. So just bring your elbow up a little bit towards, yeah, there you go, good. So hand's gonna get straight too, so you're gonna see these little deviations. He's like used to having that wrist out there, it's obvious. Try to keep that nice and straight. So he just did that. Let's actually do this. So now, what I can do is let's talk about how the nervous system perceives training. So in terms of the nervous system, we talked about isometrics, right? Is it complex for his nervous system to stay somewhere and just push down and not even move? Not really, right? It's as basic as it gets, pretty much. Now, in terms of what's more complex than that would be to stay in your end range, or even stay in your range that you don't have. So what does that look like? So now I want you to take a big deep breath in, exhale, everything out. Now sniff some air in, tuck the pelvis under you, pull the belly button away from the ground. Turn your hat around so you can rest your head so you're not using your neck. Good. Okay, so now I don't want you to flick your wrist at all, just be passive, let me take you to your end range. Good. Okay, so you guys, any pinching feeling in the back? Good. Really uncomfortable though, right? Yeah. Good. Okay, perfect. So you can see, even when we did that lift off, he has more passive range of motion in his shoulder than he really has active, right? So if I want to bridge the gap, it makes a lot of sense for me to just say, yo, just fucking stay here, right? And then we can bridge the gap. So right now, really keep your abs tight and start to fire the backside of your shoulder as if you're trying to lift off of my hand with your shoulder, not your wrist. Elbow's gonna stay down, elbow stays down. Ready? On the count of 3, I'm gonna let go. I do not want you to drop at all. 3, 2, 1, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Don't curl your bicep. Don't curl your bicep. Out, out, out. 3, 2. Less wrist, less wrist, less wrist. 2 and 1. Good. So much harder than it looks. All right, now you guys see this deviation that he has in his wrist that he likes to do? You're not allowed to touch this. Okay. Don't knock the block over. Already tensioning. Don't tension on 1. Make sure you're holding it up right now. 3, 2, 1, 10, 9. Less wrist, less wrist. Straighten that motherfucker out. Don't let it flick up. Don't let it flick up. Hold right there. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Slow on the way down. Good. Okay. So there's the nervous system saying, all right, what's complex? Definitely not just staying there. Let's start with that. So I'm bridging the gap between where he was able to get by me pulling him there and where he's able to get actively. Now the next step, go ahead and do that lift off again. So hands straight, do not flick your wrist at all. Keep that shit like this, like overdo the opposite. Yes, there you go, don't lose that. Now lift as high as you can. Hold, 3, 2, 1, down. Get tight again, lift, hold. 3, 2, 1, down. Now we're really end range training. Go ahead and lift the hand again. Keep your elbow here, straighten out your arm, and bring your thumb to me. So straighten out your arm. Good, keep going, 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 going, good. Lock out. Try to turn this back as much as you can. Nope, other way, other way. Keep holding that rotation. Now bend your elbow back to where it was. Nope, other way. Like put it back down on the block out where we had it. So bend your elbow. And then bring it back and down, right? So I'm trying to get him to maintain external rotation, straighten out the arm, even rotate through the elbow, maintain external rotation on the way back, and slowly place it down. Does everybody see that? So it's just another variable that I'm putting on him. Another one that I like to use, okay? Let's have you. Yeah, this is more of like an advanced option that I would just use to just put variability in, but you could totally use that in that spot. Okay, so now lift your hand as high as you can. Good. Now hold the hand here. I don't want you to use your wrist, and I don't want you to lose this at all. I want you to try to keep your hand higher than your elbow, okay? Now also lift your elbow without losing your hand higher. Lift the elbow. Hold. Good, so just shoulder abduction while he maintains external rotation. This is way harder than it looks. 3, 2, when you come down, put your elbow down first. Don't let the hand go down. Good, now let the hand go down. Everybody see that? So now I'm combining shoulder, scap motion with the elbow, with the rotation.
What's your cueing through the shoulder blades?
Right now, his shoulder blade's just kind of sitting down here. When he had to lift this up, his shoulder blade should have naturally came to the midline and retracted in order to pull him off of the ground. I didn't say it there, but you could totally put your hand here. You could say, hey, pull this to the midline, use your scap. Sometimes, especially if you're working with someone, to keep it basic. So instead of saying scap and having them think about these things that they might not really even know yet, just to say, lift your elbow as high as you can. Make sure your hand stays higher. So sometimes simple is more effective, but if you wanted to get more particular with the cue, I would either give them a manual cue and say, hey, squeeze this to the midline, good, or lift this up into me, and then try to keep your hand higher. So those are both options. Good question. Anything else?